everybody, and welcome to this week's Prophetic Trumpet. As we continue in the prophetic unveiling, we are now 15 weeks in, and we have got an extensive teaching for you today. We're going to go biblical here to kind of set the stage for where we're headed next. Because let's just be honest, in the course of the last 14 weeks, we have given you a lot of information from the real world and how it is lending to biblical prophecy. And there is a culmination point that we need to recognize. Now remember that everything we have covered in the previous 14 episodes is part of a process for the coming beast system. This system is tied to the figure known as the Antichrist. And it is his system where he will be the one to engage it, and it's implemented by both he and the false prophet, I should say. Now, we have seen the evil, we have revealed corruption abound in this series, in multiple levels, all over the so-called free world, and that a great number of them are based from strategies in World War II Germany that have really around 80 years after the fact, are still being put into play against a much larger audience, but for the same means, to be able to conquer the world. Now, the vehicle for bringing this to be most prominently, but not unto itself, is the World Economic Forum. And the puppet master that has recently stepped down, his name is Klaus Schwab, he's got a whole lot of people underneath him. As a matter of fact, he's got senators and people from the House of Representatives that are under his tutelage. And you can usually find that on the World Economic Forum website that will tell you who is aligned with him and who has been taught by him. Now, the beast system is what he and his group of other entities are moving towards, and we're going to begin with the beast system highlights. These are just the highlights, folks. In Daniel chapter 11, verse 31, it mentions the abomination of desolation, and this is a term that really has been skewed quite a bit in the last 40 years. But armed forces are going to rise up and desecrate the temple fortress and will abolish the daily sacrifice. This is going to be led by the Antichrist, and they will set up the abomination that causes desolation. That's really how it should read. And the daily sacrifice, which means there has to be a temple, which means there has to be red heifers, and you've heard a lot about that here on the Prophetic Trumpet. If you have not, hey, go back and take a listen, or even, heaven forbid, you look at my face and watch me, but nonetheless, so this all takes place in the Temple Mount, and all eyes are on the Temple Mount is what's going on there. And as it relates to the red heifer sacrifices, the red heifer sacrifices are rumored to be what caused the attacks back in October of 2023 against Israel. Now, he cannot be trusted, this being the Antichrist, because he will invade the kingdom where people feel secure, and he will seize it through intrigue. Then an overwhelming army will be swept away before him. Both it and the Prince of the Covenant will be destroyed. After coming to an agreement with him, that being the Antichrist, he will act deceitfully, and with only a few people, that is, he will rise to power. When the richest provinces feel secure, he will invade them, and he will achieve what neither his fathers nor his forefathers could. And he will distribute plunder. He will also distribute loot, and he will bring wealth to his followers. This is redistribution of wealth, folks. He will plot the overthrow of the fortresses, but he's only going to be around for a short time. That's Daniel 11, 21 through 24, for those of you that want to follow along. Now, he is a liar. He is a thief of thieves. He makes an agreement and he makes promises of peace, but then he breaks his promises and he goes against and kills many and deceives many because they're going to buy into what he says. Now in Daniel chapter 11, that's where we've been. We're going to about take a transition here in a little bit to Daniel chapter 12, but nonetheless, starting in verse 36 through 45, we see another king that is introduced, which is identified as the same person of the little horn, which is found in Daniel chapter 7. And he is described as an absolute ruler. The king shall do according to his will, as the one who claims to be God, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god. That's in verse 36. The subsequent description, he is portrayed as against the gods of the past and the materialist who shall honor the god of fortresses instead of these, with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. Verse 38. So you see how this is starting to come together and how this is more than just the conquering of a land. This is a spiritual war that is manifesting. It's not just about the claiming of loot and plunder, although that is part of it. We can see that there is a spiritual equation to this. Now the challenges to his rule are mentioned in verses 40 through 44, apparently referring to the great final world war. Like the little horn in chapter 7, that is, he's a blasphemer, he's opposed to God, hence the name Antichrist, and is apparently the last ruler before the return of Jesus Christ and the resurrection of his saints. That is right there in chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. Now, an alternative view I must mention is that he is a less important personage, a minor ruler of Palestine in the time of the end, a view somewhat contradicted by claims of the ruler of supremacy over all others politically or religiously. He is interpreted as the little horn, that's chapter 8 verse 9 by the way, as the future Antichrist, although he is more problematic than Antiochus Epiphanes, a king of Syria. So if you want to know what the predecessor is, there you go, Antiochus Epiphanes, the king of Syria. Now Paul's major discourse of this concept is found in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, very beginning of the chapter all the way through verse 12. In discussing the future day of the Lord, I want you to pay real close attention to this, is that he will not come unless the rebellion comes first. And the man of lawlessness, that being the Antichrist, is revealed, the son of perdition, that's another name for him, who opposes and exalts himself against every so-called God and object of worship. So he will take his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. So this isn't just about Christianity, and this isn't just about the Jews. This is against every belief system on the face of the earth, and this includes anything that you can possibly think of. He is going to say that he is sovereign to all of it, to all of those beliefs, potentially saying that all of these belief systems are deceptive and have led to roads to nowhere, and that he himself is the true God and meant to be worshipped. Now he predicts, that being Paul, predicts that after the lawless one is revealed, that the Lord Jesus will slay him with the breath of his mouth and destroy him as his appearing and coming. That's in chapter 2, verse 8 of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Because of the similarity between the activities and the final doom of the person at the second coming of Christ, many futurist interpreters identify this person as the same little horn that is identified, as we mentioned in Daniel chapter 7, and the king that is mentioned that we spoke of in Daniel chapter 11, specifically verse 36. So you see, all this is starting to come together. The most impressive New Testament passage relating to the Antichrist is the description that is given in Revelation chapter 13. It speaks of two beasts, one rising out of the sea, and that's in verses 1 through 10, and another beast out of the land, that's verses 11 through 18. Now, you have to understand the mind of a Hebraic teaching to understand the difference between the land and the sea. This doesn't mean that a mermaid is going to rise up out of the ocean and somehow become the ruler of the world. That's not what this is saying. It's the difference between the Jews and the Gentiles in Jewish interpretation. Now, various interpretations are without number, but generally the first beast is identified as a futurist, as the final world ruler before the second coming of Christ. And the second beast is considered a religious leader, working under the political authority of his religion and also tied to political civic authority across the world. The second beast is, like I said, he is considered a religious leader. This is where we get into the two-horn theory that is spoke of in the book of Revelation as well, which we have spoke of. Nonetheless, this is a similarity with the first beast bearing 10 horns and 7 heads. Now I'm going to get into that in a few weeks here. To the little horn in Daniel chapter 7, many have identified this passage as a person and a government that he leads being the Antichrist. Other ideas about this consider Christ religiously rather than from the standpoint of a supreme authority of the world, and identify the second beast as the Antichrist. Obviously, both are of the Antichrist spirit, which is spoke of in Paul's writings. Now, one of the most interesting and interpretive problems relate to the Antichrist is the reference that the number of his name. And there's a lot of mythology about this and a lot of things that have occurred in social media, but most importantly in pop culture about the number of the beast. This is in Revelation chapter 13, verse 17. The passage goes, this calls for wisdom to let him who has understanding reckon the number of the beast, for it is a human number, because 6 is the number of man. It is the number of 666, and that is in verse 18. Now, when we examine this, we have to explain this from a point of view that most of you don't really hear too often, because quite honestly, it's kind of out there and it's kind of hard to understand. The explanation is numerous. There is many as there are as days in a week. To mention that have been offered to solve the riddle of this statement, because everybody seems to be obsessed with what does it represent or who does it represent, using the letter equivalents of the numbers in Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, because each of them, their respective alphabets, the letters to the alphabet have numeric equations to them. Now, one common explanation is that it refers to Caesar Nero, which with the Hebraic endings, such as John uses and some other proper names in Revelation, which would be spelled out Kaiser Neron. Okay, now this is where we're going to get a little confusing here, so I want you to bear with me here. I may lose you, and that's perfectly understood, but don't worry, I'll reel you back in. These numbers are eliminating the unimportant vowels within the name, okay, because you have to understand how those alphabets operate, and there are actual alphabets out there in foreign languages that do not have vowels. I know that sounds weird to those of us that are still trying to learn English at over 50 years old, but nonetheless, they have numeric values such as 666. Now, Kaiser Neron, the K represents 100, a numeric value of 100. The S is 60, a value of 60. The R is a value of 200. And the N has a value of 50. The R, again, a value of 200. The O, a value of 6. And the N is a value of 50. Thus, you have similar expressions that equate to 666. Now, similar expressions using Greek letters can make an illusion of Caligula taken as a whole. However, the best explanation seems to regard the 666 as referring to man, since 6 is short of the perfect number of 7. In Scripture, man works 6 days, he rests on the 7th, and we are created a little bit lower than the angels, so the common derivative is that we are the number 6. Now, Nebuchadnezzar's image in the Bible was 666 cubits high and 6 cubits broad, that is. Now, let me try that again. The implication would be that the Antichrist, great though he is in power of influence, as the man ultimately will be judged by Christ, who is God, which is exactly what happened to Nebuchadnezzar. Now, the rising Antichrist desires to take away freedom in exchange for worship to himself. He wants to steal the worship of God. So you know he is truly a tool of the enemy. That's how you know this. He wants to force us to worship him only. Remember, he's going to come against every faith system in existence in the world and say that he is the one true God. He will attempt to do this by instituting a mark. Unless the mark of the beast is taken, the beast system, people will not be able to buy or sell. That's Revelation 13, verses 15 through 18. And this is very similar to what is happening in China and some European countries, especially the Norwegian countries, to where you have a mark that allows you to simply use the force and wave your hand, and as you leave a store with whatever it is you're wanting to have, and it deducts from your account. But oh, wait a minute, if you say something bad or do something that the government doesn't approve of, your credit score lessens, and so they take money from you and they take opportunity from you. And so they can control what you do and exchange it with what you can do with your finances and with the access you have to certain resources. Now, those who do not worship the mark and the beast will be persecuted, they will be killed, they will be hunted and killed, that is. And this is the global empire of complete authoritarian rule. This evil global dictatorship is coming. I need you to know that. It is in prophecy, and prophecy has yet to be proven wrong. It is coming. Nothing is going to stop it. We can delay it, but nothing is going to stop its coming. And we cannot stop it no matter what we do, no matter who we elect. It is coming. Now, we can only prepare for it and seek the Lord on how best to resist it. Now, we obviously don't resist the government that is good and looking out for the welfare of its people, but we need to understand the only way out of this is to be raptured. And to be raptured, you have to be true to your husband. Now, if you're a guy, you're thinking, that's crazy, I don't have a husband. Jesus is the bridegroom. You're the bride. I'll let you deduct that. He is going to call you up in the moment, the flash, and the twinkling of an eye. And he will remove you from the face of the earth and into him. We find that very equation spoken of in Paul's writings in Colossians chapter 3. There's more selections on that. I don't have time to get into that. But nonetheless, this is your beast system. The blueprints are there, and I have proven to you in previous installments of the prophetic trumpet that it's just waiting to be put together. One man will do that. We call him the Antichrist. We want to thank you for joining us for this week's prophetic trumpet. Please like, share the message, get the truth of God out to the world, and be blessed by it. And we hope you join us Saturday as we continue our look at the book of Colossians. Ironically, in chapter 3. Pretty convenient, isn't it? Hope you all have yourself one heck of a blessed day. Go out and be a beacon of light.